Hello, everyone. This is Lily Luna, and this is part 3 of the Daniel Kelly police interview, my analyzation. Um, I'm just gonna kind of pick this right back up. Where did we leave off? So far, I didn't think the interrogator was doing that great of a job. Maybe he's just using some kind of tactic I'm not picking up on, but if he is, I'm really not seeing it. And yeah, so far, yeah, Daniel Kelly, he just seems like kind of a normal guy. Kind of a, the slimy salesperson, kind of that stereotype, but he's very well. We'll get it. I'll start playing it and then we'll kind of, because I've started to look this over before I started recording. So let me not get ahead of myself. I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
Maybe more appropriate to just say, look, I'm
It,
a grown man and I can't do this.
yes, it would have certainly would have been more appropriate.
You feel
Absolutely.
like you got a problem?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever, and you say you've never had issues like this before, you've never engaged?
I that was kind of one thing I was starting to go into. I wonder if he's just because he doesn't really seem to be having any kind of like realization, any kind of epiphany that, hey, maybe I really do have a problem. He seems like he's kind of just saying it to say it. Like maybe if he admits to having a problem with it, maybe they'll go easier on him. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. Because this guy's easy to believe. Like when he answers saying that he didn't have the intentions of doing that, like it's very easy to believe him because he says it with such conviction, and it really makes me wonder like how much practice he has at making people believe what he wants them to believe. And he's a salesperson, seems to be fairly successful at that, so it's not a huge reach that he would be very good at that sort of thing. Because I don't really see right there that he really genuinely thinks he has a problem. It comes across more like he's saying it just to kind of go along with it.
Some conversations with
I'm
minors
gonna
on the internet before,
turn it up a little bit.
but you do go in chat rooms a lot.
I go in, yeah, not into like sexually explicit chat rooms, like Florida chat rooms, typical standard chat
Well,
rooms.
sexually
But
explicit
but
is
when you go to
pretty
these chat rooms,
pretty
you're telling
typical
me
for
you've never
chat
been
rooms.
engaged in these kind of conversations before.
I don't go looking for minors. No, absolutely not. That's not.
But have you ever? Now,
Years.
I'm not saying
I
you.
can remember 3 or 4 years ago talking to a minor. That's probably the last time I remember talking to a minor.
And did it get
It didn't get sexually
sexual?
explicit. No,
But you didn't act on it.
no.
Didn't get sexual. Was it a girl or boy?
It was a girl, and I don't even remember where she was, but it wasn't like somebody local or
Dan, you ever been arrested before?
not since a teenager.
Have you ever had any kind of psychiatric treatment?
No, I won't.
When you say you won't, what do you mean?
I won't.
Oh, he kind of had a strong reaction to that there. I wonder if if he's like, look at the look on his face. I wonder if there's some kind of like trauma there related to a psychiatric. Because I know people have, can have really strong feelings about psychiatry and stuff like that, but his reaction there seems to suggest a little bit more than just strong beliefs. Yeah, I kind of captured it at a good moment. Look at the look on his face. He's like, "Fuck no." Um, wow, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Let's move on.
Submit to psychiatric treatment.
Why?
Personal beliefs. That's all.
But yet you acknowledge that you might have a problem.
Yeah,
You said
but not
it's kind
something
of a
that's.
compulsion. You said.
It's not something that a psychiatrist is going to help me with.
Who do you think could help you?
I'll reserve that for my own. I mean,
You go to church?
not currently. No.
Have you ever? You have any kind of religious background?
Sure.
What can I ask? What it was?
I was
like?
born and raised a Catholic. Hmm.
And but you're not a practicing Catholic.
A little obvious here.
Not necessarily. They got priests that get
Yeah.
problems with this.
Yeah, they're not practicing Catholics. I'm sorry.
Well, yes, I agree with you. But no, you don't. So you don't really have any kind of spiritual background.
I have a very heavily spiritual background. I'm not currently, obviously, I'm off the rails.
But you don't feel like you need any kind of psychiatric.
That laugh right there is kind of creepy. Like it's I don't know. It's maybe kind of creepy that he would try to make a joke like in the middle of this conversation. But yeah, that I don't know why, but that laugh just kind of gives me the creeps. It's just very, very, I guess, insincere, which is pretty consistent with with kind of my take on this guy. Yeah, that was kind of a creepy laugh, and there's some other creepy things that pop up as we move on.
Help or counseling.
I need
Let's
help.
put it
I
that
need
way,
counseling. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But I won't subject to psychiatric counseling. I've had personal relatives that have, just personal experience. That's not the road I would go. That's all.
What if the court told you had to go through some kind of court-ordered counseling program? Does that sound good? Would that be okay with you?
And
I wonder why the cop is going off on this tangent about the psychiatric help or counseling or whatever it is he's going on about here. Why is he asking him if it would be okay with him? I mean, that has to do with sentencing, because a lot of people who are convicted of these sorts of crimes, they do have court ordered things, sex offender treatment classes, whatever it is that they've got to do. But why is I don't see what the angle is from the cop asking him if he would submit to that sort of thing. Maybe it's just a roundabout way of if he admits that he would seek treatment for that, then I guess that's like admitting that he would. That's the only reason I can see for the cop kind of going down that road. Because why is he asking him if that would be okay with him? Doesn't matter. I mean, he's gonna have to go by whatever the courts tell him to do. So, who cares if it's okay with him? I don't really see why the cop is asking him that. I'm a little bit confused about that. But moving on.
depends on the nature of the counseling, I
Do you
suppose.
feel like you might need it?
Well,
Look where you're at.
um,
You feel
who,
like
who doesn't need counseling?
Well, I agree.
Whether
But there's
whether
a
this
difference, though.
whether
See?
this is enough to snap me out of it, I think it might be.
Well, sir, I hope so.
'Cause,
Because
uh,
you're sitting there. You're a professional guy. And You
Exactly.
sound like you're pretty successful, and here you are under arrest
Yeah. Wow.
for getting involved in a conversation with someone who you believe was a 13-year-old
Hmm.
girl, correct?
Right.
Engaging in sexual conversation with her on the computer.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And then making a 3-hour drive to come meet her for we don't know what.
For dinner and a movie. That I will stand behind.
And dinner and a movie, and sounds like dinner and a movie, and we don't know what else. We've already acknowledged
we
that
know
we
that
think,
much.
We think we'd have
We
enough
know that much.
self-control, but
Yeah.
who knows is what you said.
I agreed with you that it's hard to say that under any circumstances some other things could have happened. Maybe she was a 13-year-old stripper, and
Would that have made it okay?
maybe. I mean, it would have to be something pretty drastic than just a 13-year-old girl. It would have it would.
So if you found out that she was,
I'm not even saying that's it, but I'm saying it would
got
have
you,
to be
but
something
let me
pretty
just- let me
drastic.
just ask you this, since you brought that up. If you found out,
Okay, so that laugh right there is even creepier, and followed by what he just said about the 13-year-old stripper is okay. So most people, I would like to believe most reasonable people, if they hear about because things like that, maybe not a 13-year-old stripper, but things like that do happen. 13-year-olds, go into prostitution, go into things like that at a young age, for various reasons. Usually these are street kids and things like that. That does happen. And when I would like to think a reasonable person who thinks of a 13-year-old child, selling their bodies or stripping for money, whatever it is, they think of they would think of them as a victim, as somebody who needs help, somebody who needs somebody to help them, not somebody who needs somebody to have sex with them. And this is what I mean when I say this guy is almost one of the more disturbing ones, because he puts on a really good face, but then he kind of, it's like the facade almost slips sometimes. Like, look at that look on his face. I know I kind of caught it at a funny time, but it's like these fake laughs that he comes out with, and you would think he would say one thing, but he says the complete opposite. He doesn't say, "Hey, 13-year-old stripper, that girl might need some help." He says, "Oh, well, in that case, it would be okay to have sex with her." That's a really, really twisted way of looking at things. And yeah, it, I'm glad I went ahead and did this part 3. I wasn't sure if I was gonna keep going with this, because it wasn't turning out as interesting as I maybe thought it was gonna be. Part 1, was kind of blah, but I think this part 3 is kind of where you see really the cracks in kind of the face that he presents to the world, because that's a really, really fucked up thing to say when you think about it. And I think the cop is kind of having the same reaction I'm having. Like, oh, so if you find out she is basically a victim of whatever she's a victim of, then that makes it okay to to victimize her even more, to take even further advantage of somebody who's already been put in a terrible position that can be very hard to climb your way out of, even with help. I mean, your first reaction is just to exploit her even more. I mean, that is that's pretty fucked up. I mean, what else can I really say other than that?
That she was a 13-year-old stripper or a 13-year-old prostitute.
Right. Well,
Okay.
that I
Were
would probably run away from.
Well,
If she was a
okay.
prostitute, I'd run away from that.
Why? Because you're
Yeah, hold on. I stop. Hang on. Let me hear his answer before I comment again.
afraid of the disease factor?
Probably. Yeah.
Well, what if she's a 13-year-old prostitute and she turns around and shows you a clean AIDS test and says, "I'm clean"?
Well, there's a lot of scenarios we could discuss here, but
But
the
sounds
point being, it would have to be a lot more than what this
But
scenario.
I understand that,
Under
but
the-
it sounds like you would be willing to
Not
to
willing.
to
Not willing.
engage.
Well, no, he is willing. I mean, he just said it. In the right scenario, he would be. And I guess uh, I think the cop is maybe going a little bit too far with saying, "Would you do it in this scenario?" Well, would you do it in this scenario? But I do see his point, because again, it's not that he doesn't want to exploit someone who's already been exploited. It's that he's afraid of getting a disease, he's afraid of what consequences it would have for him. Not for her, not for the person he'd be victimizing. He is just worried about himself, which is the way the majority of these guys operate. Um, but yeah, I'm still not overly impressed with the cops' tactics here. I think Dan himself here actually kind of had a point when he's like, "Look, we can go over all these different scenarios and talk about." I don't really see the point in pursuing all that, because what the cop needs is what's gonna go over in a court, not in. I mean, I think that he is definitely. Ew, look at that! I just looked at where I had pause. He looks kind of. Yeah, it's just it's weird how I find these little like minute, like these fleeting expressions that you can't always catch in real time. But yeah, that's why I kind of had a hunch that he would be an interesting one to analyze. Because he's not one of the more everybody knows him as the let go of the keys guy. But I've never seen much discussion on him. But he's kind of one that flies under the radar for how creepy he really is, which makes him, of course, even more creepy. But let's move on. This one's shorter than the others. We've got about 4 minutes left in the interview. So moving on.
Despite the age, depending on their morality or the type of person they are.
No, I was just trying to clarify.
Sorry if you guys can hear. My cat is not happy and she's meowing at me, so I don't know if the mic's picking it up, but sorry if it is.
Or further amplify what you mentioned earlier, so that you could be clear that, to make it clearer to you that it would have to be pretty drastic for me to do anything other than dinner and movie.
Pretty drastic.
I mean, it would have. I can't even imagine what it would be, because
other than what you just said,
Go on.
Stripper, 13-year-old stripper.
Yeah, I mean, even that would.
You'd have to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd still have to give it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only, like I said, the only real reason why I came at all was because of the possibility there was a real person at the other end that I could offend by not showing. Not that
Yeah,
my
that's
thoughts,
a
those
bunch
would
of
be the words
bull.
that I would use.
Because her boyfriend
Yeah, because of her.
let her down.
Yeah,
You
and
didn't wanna let
she
her down.
seemed whatever. Yeah, that would be probably the thing that.
You got anything to add?
Yeah.
What we're gonna do is, we'll just escort you out, and there's some chairs on the wall that you can sit in.
Okay.
And Investigator Morgan will stay with you there until they process you. So,
Okay.
Do you have any questions for either of us, since we've been doing all the asking?
What do you see happening with this?
Well, at this point, you're under arrest,
Okay.
and you're charged with.
Already went over.
Okay. you've
I don't know
read
where
the
this
charges.
pornography on the internet comes. I don't remember being pornographic with her. Is that just a wording, or because of the talk?
I'm not sure, but yeah, that may
Yeah,
have
the
something to
talk.
do with it, the sexual content of the conversation, considering it's a 13-year-old.
See, it's a dialogue.
See,
Just the dialogue is
yeah.
considered pornographic?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, you're not dealing with a 21-year-old woman. You're dealing with what you perceive to be a 13-year-old.
Right.
There's the crime. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Think about. Do you have a daughter? How old's your daughter?
20.
Think about your daughter when she was 13, and if a grown man, 45 years old, was engaging in sexual conversation with her over the internet, would you not
Right.
feel that's a crime?
Well, I'd have
Would
to
you be
agree.
upset about it?
I'd be upset about it.
Your
Absolutely.
daughter.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyway, so you're going to be taken to the Flagler County jail
Okay.
this evening. You'll spend the night there.
Okay.
Tomorrow you'll go before the judge,
Okay.
and the judge will set bond.
Okay.
And I don't know what that bond will be.
Okay.
I think that's kind of up to the judge.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you for now.
Okay.
And your vehicle, what kind of car do you have?
Pontiac Aztec.
Is that your car?
Yeah.
Is it entitled in your name?
Uh-huh.
Can I ask if it's financed or paid for? Or
Paid for.
Paid for. Well, that vehicle will stay here.
Okay.
And it's probably going to be seized for forfeiture by this agency.
Why would that happen?
Because when you use a vehicle to transport yourself in the commission of a felony, then
Mhm.
that vehicle becomes seizable under Florida statute. So you may lose your car.
Wow.
Did you have any conversations with her other than the phone or the computer? Is that all it covered?
That one, that statute that he's talking about, I had never heard of that before. It comes up in the tennis boy Safraz Khan interviewed too. She tells him basically the same thing, that he's probably going to lose his car. That, I don't know, that just kind of puzzles me as to why because I don't believe there's been the other interviews I've heard, like the Bowling Green ones. I don't believe anything like that ever came up, and I think that must just be a Florida stat. I mean, there's probably other states that have similar, but not that I recall coming up in any of the TCAP stuff. That's, I don't know. I mean, do I care that this guy lost his car? No. I mean, who cares? This guy seems to be doing okay for himself financially. I mean, he can get another car, but that's just one of those. That goes back to my feelings on kind of like law enforcement and the justice system, not about this particular guy. I don't know. I don't see how they can take. I mean, that seems like that's something that could be said about, if somebody drives their car to, somebody's going to drive their car probably to commit most crimes. I mean, and now they can seize it for that reason. I don't know, just something about that kind of puts me off. And I don't know if I might be alone in that, but that might just be one of those backwards ass Florida things. And I say that as a as a Florida native, so I feel like I can say that because I have lived here my entire life. Although not in the around Flagler Beach. But yeah, that I just thought that popped out to me when I've watched the Tennis Boy interview too. So yeah, just kind of an interesting note that I guess in this sting, their cars get seized and auctioned off or whatever they end up doing with that. Yeah, gotta love Florida. I'm gonna keep going. It looks like it's just about over. Yeah, I'll keep going and then I'll make my final comments about it.
I don't follow you.
I mean, obviously you didn't talk for too long in person, but I mean, every conversation that you had with her was computer and phone, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna let the investigator that's gonna be out in the hallway explain to you everything about the vehicle, because I don't know all the ins and outs about that, and he can give you more information about that, so I don't wanna give you any misinformation.
Okay.
Okay? All right, that's it, thank you.
Step right out here and hang right now.
So yeah, that's the end of that one. Yeah, it kind of really seemed to only sink in at the end there what what he has gotten himself into, that he because obviously he knows that he's under arrest and that he's in some trouble, but he might have thought up until that point that it was maybe something that wouldn't be, that he could get out of fairly easily. Obviously he's going to have to, bail. He can, obviously we know he had the money to bond himself out because he was the one who um bummed a smoke from or gave a smoke to one of the other predator. I can't remember which predator it was off the top of my head, but they shared a smoke together after they both got out of jail. So I think at that point he was kind of thinking, okay, this sucks. I'm going to jail, but I can, I'll bond out and then I'll get me an attorney and get it figured out. Have to go to court, but maybe it won't be so bad. But now that it got towards the end there and he's like, it seemed to kind of sink in when he was like, wow, I'm here, I'm under arrest, this is not good. And then when they drop the bomb on him that they're going to seize his car, he's like, oh, this is really not good. Because I think maybe that made it really sink in, like how serious of a crime that he was charged with. I think before that maybe he wasn't, and that may be why I questioned when this first started in part one, why he in particular didn't choose to get an attorney, because my thought was that he seems, fairly intelligent. He seems shrewd enough to know that that would be the smart thing to do, was to get a lawyer. And I think that may be one reason why he in particular didn't decide to do that, because maybe he thought it wasn't as serious as it actually was. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got on this one. Yeah, that was my analyzation of Daniel Kelly. Hope you guys liked it. Yeah, I'm not sure who I'm gonna be covering next. Things are gonna just be kind of intermittent as far as coming out with videos, because things are just still really crazy with my job and with home life and everything. But I'm gonna try to, until things settle down a bit more, I'm gonna try to come out with hopefully a video every couple of weeks, every like 2 or 3 weeks, I'm gonna try to come out with at least one video because I definitely want to keep going with this because it is enjoyable. And it's nice to have something like this to blow off a little bit of steam and stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure who I'll do next, but I'm gonna look at some stuff and read up on some predators and see who I want to talk about. Maybe I'll ask for ideas on my Facebook page. But until then, this has been Lily Luna, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.